Well, hello, my friends. My name is Ezra Levant. I'm the Rebel Commander here at the world headquarters of rebelnews.com in a secure location in the Greater Toronto Area. And joining me from our Western Outpost is our chief reporter, Sheila Gunn-Reid. Hi, Sheila.
Hey, I'm great. Just to let everybody know, this is an equally as secure location. And I want to point out that these backgrounds look fantastic. Our graphics guy is just absolutely incredible. He did this on such short notice, but boy, they look great. So vibrant.
Yeah, special thanks to Mike for doing that. And of course, Justin, our producer, editor, who is manning the control room. What are we doing? Well, tonight is, I think it's the last of the presidential debates. Donald J. Trump and Joe Xinhua Biden are having their debate in Nashville, Tennessee. And very excited about the third person on the stage, the second Democrat, Kristen Welker, a well-known Democrat from a family of Democrat donors, poses for photos with Barack Obama. She will be playing the role of the neutral moderator tonight, and I'm sure that'll go just as well as Miss Stahl's, Leslie Stahl's interview with Donald Trump on 60 Minutes. So I don't know why Donald Trump agrees to a debate where the debate commission is run by his political opponents, but he has, and we'll see how that goes. How do you think it's going to go?
It's going to be, I think, 2-on-1 again. I think Donald Trump is going to be a little more prepared, but not any less argumentative than last time. And I think he's got a lot to be prepared with, given the things that we are learning in the last few hours about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. A lot of things have unfolded recently. So I think he's going to be very well prepared. But I don't think it is going to be any more civilized than last time. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be brutal. I mean, Donald Trump is pugnacious. Joe Biden is too, in his own way. I think that Joe Biden doesn't have the same cognitive acuity that Trump has. So, believe it or not, his campaign says he's been preparing for this debate for 5 days. I would think that that's actually plausible, given how weak and wobbly he is. But I think that's actually was the excuse for taking him away from reporters, because over the course of the 5 days, shocking revelation after revelation has come forward. A laptop containing emails and other documents from Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, showing his deep dealings with Russia, Ukraine, China, and not just dealings, but payments, payoffs, a $3.5 million payment from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. Why are you wiring $3.5 million from Moscow to Hunter Biden? Hunter Biden has no skills. He's a drug addict, sorry to hear it. He's a man of continuous accidents. But because his luckiest accident was being born the son of Joe Biden, he basically rented himself and his family out when his dad was vice president. That's all come out. That's an incredible storyline. In fact, it's what the Democrats accused Trump and Trump's kids of doing for years, being under the thrall, under the payment of the Russians. A massive legal inquiry led by Robert Mueller proved that completely baseless. Here we have documentary proof that that's all Hunter Biden does, and the media doesn't want to talk about it for 1 minute.
Well, we see the same thing unfolding here in Canada. Justin Trudeau and his family trade on the family name to enrich themselves. They did it at with the We organization, but they also did it at the Trudeau Foundation. We know that the Trudeau Foundation, right after Justin Trudeau became the prime minister, the donations to the Trudeau Foundation quintupled overnight, and they got a $1 million donation from some Chinese billionaires that were linked directly to the Chinese Communist government. Some of that money was meant to build a bit of a Maoist statue to Pierre Elliott Trudeau. But I mean, Justin Trudeau does the same thing here, and he gets the same kid glove treatment from the media.
Yeah, you know what? It was very perceptive. I can't remember who said it on Twitter. If you want to see what Hunter Biden would be like in power, well, just look at Justin Trudeau. Dopey, drug-addled, lazy, promiscuous, ne'er-do-well, worthless but for his last name. The luckiest thing to ever happen to Justin Trudeau is that his father was born first. And the same could be said of Hunter Biden. It'll be interesting to see if the media party in the United States can drag Joe Biden across the finish line. They're certainly trying, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. And I mean, although I think Trump has some, and I don't want to say stunts because that's not really what it is. But I mean, in the same way that he brought some of Bill Clinton's alleged sexual assault victims to his debate with Hillary, it sounds like he's bringing Hunter Biden's former business partner to the presidential debate tonight. I'm just reading The Hill here. A source familiar with the plans told The Hill that Tony Bobulinski, a former Army intelligence officer who claims to have managed the Biden's foreign business portfolio at one time, will be the president's special guest at the debate in Nashville. So I don't know if that's going to undo 5 days of preparation for Joe Biden, but I'm sure it's going to rattle him.
Yeah. Well, I remember the last debate you and I covered the live stream. And in my mind, Joe Biden exceeded the very low expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And Trump, I don't think he prepared enough for debate. Trump is used to, going to beast mode all the time.
Yeah.
But that's different than preparing for a debate where you have to have 1 or 2 lines ready to land. Trump, I don't think, was actually prepared. I don't think Trump won the last debate. I'm not saying he lost, but he didn't win. And the expectations were a factor. Now, I think things are different. It'll be interesting to see if Joe Biden can keep it together for 2 hours. It's a long time without an adrenaline shot. It's a long time without, he's like a boxer who needs the smelling salts in the water and a pep talk from his coach.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fallen apart as we see him. So can he stick it out for the 2 hours without blundering? And I think it will come down to, in part, how the Democrat moderator handles things. After the last election, they revamped the rules, talked about cutting off mics. I watched the Lesley Stahl interview on 60 Minutes. Donald Trump released the whole tape in advance, which I thought was very clever. We made a supercut. Do you have that supercut? Look at this. I asked our friend Andrew Chapados to do this edit. I said, watch that 37-minute interview and make a supercut of every time Lesley Stahl interrupted Trump in 37 minutes. Take a quick look at this.
Ready for some tough questions?
You're going to be fair.
I'm going to be fair.
Just be fair. No, we are, and the other side
You
was
know that.
coming
You
in.
know that's not true.
Okay, well, you don't have to
I'm
fact
not
check
gonna do
me.
that.
I mean, things were coming
Well, I asked you what.
in the last short
Well,
period
what's the
of time.
priority?
Very good job.
Bases are
We
off.
have done,
You
that
said,
would bring low,
One of them.
I'm saving.
And when you are.
I won't make you watch all 73 times. I guess my main point is it was 73 times. 73 times in a 37-minute interview, Lesley Stahl interrupted the president. And that was an interview. That wasn't a debate. So I'm actually not, the idea of Trump being cut off and his mic being cut off, I'm actually not even worried about that. The question is, will the Democrat moderator have her mic turned off?
Yeah.
That's what I'm worried about, is that she'll interrupt 73 times like Lesley Stahl did, like the moderators from the past debates did. I should remind you that there was a moderator scheduled. I think his name was Steve Scully. I think he was with, was it C-SPAN? I can't remember where.
C-SPAN, yeah.
Yeah, and he, in Twitter, it's dangerous. You can send a private message called a DM, a direct message. He meant to send a private message to Scaramucci, the old Trump spokesman who's turned into a never-Trump Democrat, and he accidentally made it public instead of private, where basically he showed he was colluding with the Democrats, the anti-Trumpers, that he said, my account was hacked. My point is, all of these debate moderators are trying to be the Trump killer. They all want to take a crack at him. Will the moderator's mic be cut off? That's the question. Trump can handle himself. Trump can handle Biden. But if you have someone there putting a stick in the spokes of Trump's bike wheels 73 times when he's getting going, it'll turn it into a mess.
Well, yeah, and for these, I was going to say Democrat operatives instead of debate monitors, but debate moderators, but really what's the difference? I'd probably be repeating myself there. But for them, if they are the ones that can contain and then derail Trump in a debate, it's a career-making move.
Oh, yeah.
It's how you end up as a spokesperson for Biden when he's president, God forbid. But it's a career-making move. You all have the entire Democrat, Hollywood, media establishment kissing your feet forever if you become the guy who derails Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, listen, it's 8:40 Eastern Time, 6:40 Mountain Time, and the debate is set to start in about 20 minutes. And let's just explain to folks what we plan to do tonight. So when the debate is on, you and I will be pretty quiet because we don't want to talk over them. We want to hear every word. But before that, and for I'm guessing about an hour after that, so what we're going to do is we're going to be in the little boxes on the side, like we are right here in this shot. Looks like they're testing the mic and testing the room. So we will be just watching and being quiet, and I'm going to try not to show my bitchy resting face, as people call it, my scowling face. I can't control my face. I'll be scowling most of the time. But when the debate is over, we will read our super chats. We already have a few super chats now. You're better at explaining them than me. Do you want to mention it? Do you want to explain it?
Sure. And I think Justin's having a problem. Okay, he's having a little problem framing me in properly. So if you need me to scooch over, Justin, just let me know. But yes, the super chat. So I love our live streams, and we have quite a community built around our live streams. Now that we're doing more and more of them, we've got new people joining all the time, but we've got a real cadre of regulars in there. And it gives them a chance to interact with each other. It gives Ezra a chance to interact with each other too, which I think is fun. He's not just my boss, but I think, I always think Ezra has something interesting to say, and I'd probably be watching even if he weren't my boss. But it also gives our viewers a chance to do something that they don't let you do on the mainstream media outlets. The first thing is leave a comment, and because most of them have their comment section locked right down because they don't want to hear from the people that Justin Trudeau is taking money from to give back to them. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want your opinion. We leave our comment section open. We want to hear from you. We appreciate the feedback. But you can also do something else, and that is support us willingly. Because Justin Trudeau gives over $600 million to mainstream media outlets, another $1.5 billion to the CBC. We'd never take a penny of any of that from Justin Trudeau. So we rely on the support of our viewers at home. And if you'd like to give us a super chat, you go at the bottom of the live chat. There's a little $sign. Just click on that. The more generous you're feeling, the more characters you'll get. And if there's a comment, a question, a topic, sometimes it's an insult. I prefer a compliment, but you can do that too. In the super chat, it'll pin it to the top so that everybody on the live chat can see it, but everybody watching later on can see it also. And Mr. Producer Justin will send it to myself or Ezra, and we'll read it on air and do our best to address whatever you've super chatted us to talk about.
Yeah, you're so right about comments being shut down on the CBC. They don't want anything that would trigger the more snowflakey of their viewers, but it's not even that.
Yep.
They want to talk at you and don't believe in you having a say back. They like that old-fashioned one-way communication where we all tuned in and had to just listen to their message track. They hate talk radio from unscreened callers, and they certainly hate a free internet. That's why they just simply turn off comments on many pages and certainly on their live streams. I love our super chats. They're an important source of revenue for us since YouTube has largely demonetized us. It's fun to see the regulars. I really appreciate it. Just FYI, YouTube lets us have 70% of the revenue, so it actually has become an important source of revenue for us. We pay the bills this way. But it's mainly, you can say what you want, and occasionally people who are very, very, very critical of me or our company, or I don't think I've seen any SHEILA haters present, pay some money to have a comment, and I'll read it. Why wouldn't I read it? I don't care. It's sort of like an ask me anything, and because we do our best to read every single super chat, some people say, I'll ask this question. All right, sure, I'll answer. Speaking of which, we got some great super chats going. Do you want to get the ball rolling? Because it's 8:44 Eastern. We got about 16 minutes. I think we can
Sure.
clear through the super chats here. And I say again, keep them coming during the debate, and we will catch up with them after the debaters stop. So why don't you get the ball rolling, Sheila?
That's right. We'll stay as long as the super chats are. We've got Pink Phoenix Nails, gives us $1.49, and she sends us a unicorn emoji. Jay Barrett gives us $50. $50. That's fantastic. So early. Thank you. Before we even got on air, it sounds like. Sad to see people super chat anything less than $20 US. Proud Boys Canada should be Poor Boys Canada. Justin Trudeau has to go. We invite Alberta to join the USA. Well, I'm definitely listening to that. With regard to people giving smaller super chats, you know what? Every little bit helps. And it's tough times here in Alberta and in Canada. The economy is terrible. I appreciate every little bit that people give us. And one man's $50 is another man's $1. So, I'm not in the business of judging. I appreciate all of it. American Canadian gives us $2.79. Jay Barrett, up yours. I'm just reading the super chat. You guys don't fight. We just said it was a nice community in there. Now you're arguing. Fix yourselves, live chat. Justin Beaver gives us $5. No super chat. Simple Man, $5. Will Rebel cover the fact that Canada reported its tariffs of COVID-19 testing equipment to the World Bank in 2018? I don't know. You included a link, so I will take a look at that when we are off air. Justin Beaver gives us another $5, says BLM, Biden's laptop matters. Very clever. Love you guys. Keep up the good work. Ezra, you want to take it from here?
Sure, that's very funny. Biden's laptop matters. Paul Schofield, $5. Hi, guys. Looking forward to your coverage of our U.S. debates. Nice to see you again. Well, that's nice of you. We covered the last Trump debate. I can't remember if we covered the Pence
No, we didn't.
Harris. No, you know what? I just felt
wish
like we
we
did because
had.
I watched it. And
We should have watched it together.
Yeah,
Really should
there
have.
you go. So you're right. I mean, I've been watching this anyway, so it's nice to watch it with a few thousand friends. Looking right now, we have 1,948 people watching along with us, so that's pretty fun. Dylan Fraser, $5.49. I wanted an election. Canada wants one. Yeah, but the NDP, they do what they're told. That's Justin's little helper, is Jagmeet Singh. Rod, $20
You know what?
support.
Sorry, just let me jump in there. I don't think that they're doing what they're told. I actually have changed my mind on the NDP. I thought they were Trudeau sycophants, but I don't think that that's the case. I think that the de facto prime minister is Jagmeet Singh at this point. I think that Justin Trudeau is willing to do whatever Jagmeet Singh wants to hang on to power, much like what we saw unfold in British Columbia. I think we're going to see the Liberals, if it's even possible, become more radical than they already are in an attempt to please the NDP to hang on to power, because they'll do anything. Sorry to
I
interrupt.
think it's win-win for Trudeau. Either he has an election and wins a majority, which I think he would if it were held right now. I mean, certainly the media would cheer for it. And you have two of the new party leaders, very new, Erin O'Toole. And I think the Green Party leader might actually carve away at Jagmeet Singh a bit. Anyways, let's get back to this election, this U.S. election right now. Rod, $20 from support from Halifax. Thank you for that. You know, we're trying to send reporters to Halifax, but we get legal opinions that we would have to be quarantined. And I don't want to, I mean, I'm happy to take an edgy legal opinion and run with it. But if our lawyers say you can't go in there, I guess we have to follow the rules. MVP, $5 Australian. The big tech companies will pay for attempting to shield the Biden family. Yeah, I hope so, but who's going to make them pay? I don't think Google or Facebook are afraid of anything. I think they're so large. They're the largest spenders in Washington. You can see it. I mean, I've seen the Senate majority in the U.S., the Republicans on Twitter, huff and puff, we're going to subpoena tech titans. Really? You've had 4 years there, and I haven't seen a lot of bark, a lot of tough talk for donors, but no bite. So I'm a skeptic. I think they're going to get away with it.
They've had 4 years to do something about them.
Yeah.
And we knew that they were going to crack down on social media after it was pretty clear that Trump using social media is what helped deliver him to the presidency, because he went around the mainstream media. So the Republicans, they could have done something a long time ago. I don't know why they haven't. And it just might cost them the election.
You know, Silicon Valley realized immediately that inadvertently they gave Trump the presidency. And I know this because the Friday after Trump won in 2016, so I'm talking about November. I'm not talking about when he was inaugurated in January. I'm talking days after, when people had said, what happened? After the New York Times said 90% chance of Hillary Clinton. There was I wonder if you can even find that, Justin. Alan Bokhari was leaked a video of the internal hall meeting at Google YouTube, where all these senior executives tearfully said, I can't believe this happened. We lost. We can never let this happen again. They were speaking first person plural. They didn't say Hillary lost or the Democrats lost. We, as in they were part. And Eric Schmidt, then the executive vice president of Google, was seconded to the Hillary campaign. Here, let's pump it up. Give a little bit of audio here.
The process has worked.
Oh, we're still working on that. Was Sergey Brin, one of the founders of Google. Executive after executive in an internal town hall at Google. Here, let's take a listen.
But there's another group, small group, that we should also think about, who are very excited about the legalization of pot. I was asking if we could serve joints outside on the patio. Apparently these things take a little while to take effect. It's a huge, huge disappointment. I've been bemoaning that all week, I'll be honest with you. Anyway, on a more serious note, myself, as an immigrant and a refugee, I certainly find this election deeply offensive, and I know many of you do too. And I think it's a very stressful time, and it conflicts with many of our values. I think it's a good time to reflect on that, and we're going to hopefully share some thoughts today. I guess there are two dominant reasons to be upset. One is because so many people apparently don't share many of the values that we have. I guess we've known that for many months now. It's not like, election terms, whether it was like 47.2% or 48.2% or whatever it was. It's always been a lot of people that apparently feel that way. But certainly confronting it firsthand is pretty upsetting. And secondly, confronting the reality of an administration that's now forming. And look, we have no idea what it's going to do, is the honest truth. We have no idea what direction this country will take, whatever the past policy proposals were serious or not.
It goes on for an hour. That's the full version there. There's so many shorter clips. There was Sergey Brin, a disgraceful comment that he found the election offensive. Now, Sergey Brin was one of the lucky ones whose family, and I'm going from memory here, was one of the few Soviet refuseniks who came over as a young boy. You can see his English is perfect. If I recall his story from when I last read it, he came over in the late 70s in a brief period of détente between Jimmy Carter and Leonid Brezhnev, a Russian Jew who came from tyranny to freedom. And he says he finds the free and democratic election in the United States offensive, and he's disgusted by Americans, and he goes on, and that's a 1-hour town hall. And this is the company, Google, that won't do business with the US military, but has enormous contracts with communist China. There was a point in time when Google, Sergey Brin and the other founders there, actually were freedom-oriented, and they had a motto, don't be evil. They actually had that motto, and they've thrown that out, and they've decided absolutely to be evil. They wouldn't say that. They just say, oh, we have to correct these offensive Americans. You heard him say that. Offensive. Yep. Offensive because they didn't vote the way he wanted to. But like a Soviet tyrant that his parents escaped in the 70s, he will re-educate and retrain people to think properly. We do a lot of business with Google because Google owns YouTube. And I'll just give you one small example. If we got a phone call from an executive at Google less than a month ago who told us that if we interview anyone who has a contradictory point of view on COVID-19 from the World Health Organization, anyone, if we don't have a large warning that that person is a dissident, we have to put this warning up. Now,
there it is.
Here's the YouTube, so they say we have to say it contradicts the consensus medical opinion. So I added, no, we're not going to say that. I would never say that. So we're going to put on it, YouTube requires that we indicate that some opinions in this video contradict the consensus medical opinion. So I said to our team, we have to make the warning look ugly. Yep. And we have to make it indicate that Sergey Brin, that self-righteous, I'm an immigrant. Yeah, you came when you were an infant. You don't remember any country other than America. You play that refugee card, fair enough. But you are bringing with you the monarchistic, the autarchistic one point of view in Soviet Russia. And the rest of us have to comply. And I know that as a customer of Sergey Brin, because I was told that if we have a single video that does not warn people about an unofficial opinion, will be struck, and our channel 3 strikes you out. They actually gave us 1 strike. Yeah, so I'm not ready to be lectured on offensive ideas by someone claiming to know better about freedom and democracy. He once believed in do no evil. Now he's no different than the Brezhnev and the Politburo. He fled. All right, I'm going to stop ranting. All right, we got a few minutes, lots of super chats. I'm done ranting. I encourage you to find the rest of that town hall. That was just the opening. It was a 1-hour televised town hall, televised only internally in Google. And Alan Bokhari got the leaked video. You got to watch the whole thing. Okay, Sheila, I'm going to calm down now. Why don't you read some more super chats?
Sure. And before I get a text message from our friend Yankee, can I just kindly ask some of our nearly 2,600 viewers there to click the little like button, to give it a thumbs up, because that makes us easier to find in the YouTube algorithm. And if you're feeling so inclined, do share the stream so that more people can find us.
That's a good idea. Thank you, Sheila.
Yes. Yankee reminded me on air earlier, so I know he's watching. He was ready to text message me. I know it. So I got that out of the way. Let's keep going. Lisa Proust, regular donor, regular viewer, Rebel superfan, gives us $2 and says, I love Rebel News. Thank you for your amazing work. Well, thank you for your ongoing support. Let's say you're our biggest fan, or at least one of them. Tim Evans 64 gives us $25 and says, Sheila rocks. Thank you very much. That was kind. Stephen Bent gives us $55. Thank you very much. Just glad you guys are airing the debate. The mainstream media is useless, and you give us the truth and don't take us for fools. Love the Rebel. You know, that's something that the mainstream media does do. They do underestimate the intelligence of their viewer. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can fact check them in real time, and they just don't seem to care. Jake Luchik gives us $5 Australian. Hi, Ezra and Sheila. With the growth in Black Republicans, where do you think the far left vote? Where do you think the far left vote would be if there was a Black Republican presidential candidate? You know, I think that's what I do know is that Black Republican presidential candidate would be attacked as, to use their words, an Uncle Tom. And they would likely be overwhelmingly supported by conservative voters, much the way Leslyn Lewis was supported by us backwards racist rednecks. If you were to listen to the mainstream media out here in Alberta and in Saskatchewan, that's where her main share of support came from. So I think Democrats would have a real problem with it. You would see some very terrible racism directed at that Republican presidential candidate, would they be Black. Kim Price Finnemore gives us $5, no super chat. MEDW gives us $2. If Trump goes, so does North America to the globalist. I just don't think North America. I think it would be the entire Western world. Louise Anderson gives us $20. I don't see a super chat, but that is very generous. Tom Willis gives us $5. Also very generous. No super chat, though. Gypsy Life, $5. Love Rebel News. Thank you very much. Alan Dodge, $6.99. No super chat, but very kind of you. Martin Sable, also very regular donor. Regular super chatter gives us $10. I have a friend in NYPD and Salt Lake City, and everyone they know is voting Trump. I never understood why people need to have social media in their life. I got none and doing well without it. Rebel number one. You know, you might be onto something there. Craig McDonald gives us $5. That's Craig. He's a regular donor, a great supporter of Rebel News also. Greetings from The Patch. Working nights and watching the debate on Rebel News. What a great way to help pass a night shift. Keep up the great work, guys. Thanks, Craig, and thanks for making the oil and keeping everybody going. Matthew Algio gives us $10. The NDP are broke. Trudeau knew they would vote down the anti-corruption committee because they can't afford to run in an election. That's why Trudeau made it a confidence vote. You know, you probably have a point there. Ezra, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Spud McKenzie, $7. Thanks, Spud. RM, $10. Forced to support CBC. Choose to support Rebel. Ain't that the truth? You turn off the tax tap, and the CBC would be out of business in one payroll cycle. We're just keeping an eye peeled on Nashville, Tennessee. We'll break away in the moment they get going, but I'm going to whip through the super chats as we can here. Annalisa S., $28. Thank you for that. I was so happy to see the Rebel covering the debate tonight. The Wi-Fi at work sucks, so I can never donate and have to wait until I get home to watch your shows. Happy girl here and now have some money. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Lou Elaine, $5. Looking good. Sheila and Ezra, keep up the great work. Your efforts are so appreciated. Thanks for that. Wise and Frosty, $5. My father and I are big Rebel fans, and we have all your books. Would give you more, but it's $5 the communists won't have. Well, there you go. We got lots of books, and I just went through the manuscript of our next book. I'm not going to tell you who wrote it or what's it called yet.
Not me.
But I looked at it, and it's good. And I'm very excited. I think we'll be in a position to roll that out in November, which is just a few days away. Andrew McAleese, 50 smackers. Well, thank you for that. Support from Calgary, Trump 2020, Alberta secession. Oh, he would take Alberta a second. He wanted to have Greenland. And what's Greenland but just a bunch of snow and ice? It really is very uninhabited. But Alberta, well, that's the third largest oil reserves in the world, second depending on how you measure. So, of course, he would take Alberta if Alberta wanted to join. Okie doke, where are we? Bedrock of 5 smackers. Any updates on Rebel versus Election Debate Commission lawsuit? That continues to go. We won the first round, the emergency application, exactly a year ago, but they are fighting us in the ongoing judicial review. That battle continues. I don't have an update for you imminently, but the battle, yeah, we're still fighting Trudeau. They want to keep us out from the next election debate, too, if you can believe it. Nico Agrico, $1 Australian. Thank you for that. You know, we're really active in Australia these days because of Avi Yamini, based in Melbourne, the lockdown capital of the world. He's just doing great. I'm keeping my eye peeled on Justin, who's going to tell me when the debates were about to start. So the second I'm going to hear that, we're going to, oh, there we go. There's one of the two Democrats that'll be on the stage. And I'll just keep reading here. Rusty Peterson, $70. Thank you, Rusty. It's the best and most reliable news in North America and around the world. Well, that's nice of you to say. And we are around the world again. Andre Chaos, €5. Greetings, Estonia. I've never seen an Estonian on the Super Chats before. Nice to have you. Big fan of your channel. Never donated before, but wanted to spread the good word. Thank you for that. Calvin Z, or Z, $4. Thanks. And last one, but not least, Paul W, $20. Thank you for coverage. Any comment on Hunter Biden business partner dropping a bombshell an hour ago? Well, I'm not sure which bombshell you're referring to. It feels like every few hours there's another bombshell, but maybe we'll hear about it tonight. Sheila, do you know what he's referring to?
I think if Justin could find it on Benny Johnson's Twitter feed, I think he posted a clip of I think we're ready to go maybe.
Oh, here we go.
Good evening from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump. And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you and your comments. You talked about therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics. And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine. And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it. Go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter. And he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
I don't think we're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic, it was horrible, we didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about, don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families, every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, you know, this is dangerous. And you catch it. And, you know, I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals. And now I recovered. 99.9 of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though.
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he has never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing, you're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even, and because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You certainly did. You
I
certainly did.
I talked about his xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
that's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the nation, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up, more social distancing, do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums, do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
Please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Simply not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that we're going to make sure that we can open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what about...
When you say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed. And they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems, and we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said, this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to
Wall Street
move on.
one, I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it. You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able to.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Don't tell me about Wall Street.
Average contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part, as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million, and you know, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get 3.5? I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that. And through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said, the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, you know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and...
And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it. And it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell
told you that.
Excuse
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions about all of this, but I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you have a deadline for when you're going to release them to the American people?
I get treated worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because I have a lot of people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to reduce your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
So, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you on this.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken, I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
But could I just, one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183,000, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy
I'm going to let the Vice President respond to that quickly, and then I need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very quickly.
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every
President Trump,
place he
thank you.
goes.
We do need to move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it. And that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay. Very quickly, and then we're going to move on to North Korea.
With $1.5 billion from China to manage after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what specifically are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going to make them pay.
First of all, China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come from China.
You know who the taxpayer is? It's called China. China paid $28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry. Okay. And now we have a steel industry.
Okay, Vice President Biden, your response, please.
Our response is, look, this isn't about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont. They're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want to talk about North Korea.
Me,
I do want to turn to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about North Korea.
I'm not a typical politician.
Okay,
that's why I got elected. Let's get off the subject of China. Let's talk sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next segment.
When I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And, you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, Millions of people would be dead right now.
President
we
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and
seconds.
I have a good
Thank
relationship.
you. Vice President Biden, to you. North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat?
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American families.
Kristen, they tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds, President.
They tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
got to
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it. And that's okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good relationship
Trump,
with leaders of other countries is a good thing.
We have a lot of questions to get to.
That's
Your
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And it didn't happen.
Let's move on and talk about American families.
He left me a mess, Kristen.
President Trump, okay, we do
They
need to move on.
left me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
and
need
in fact,
to
if
move on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can
first
get to
2
all
or
of
3
our
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country had.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time, and I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care. Far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families. Under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine, he won't even have a choice, they want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's your response to them? I say
it's ridiculous. It's like saying that, the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance your company's gone under? We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President Trump,
excuse me, he was there
response.
For 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like he went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking. And you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way.
But somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
he goes for a year. There will be no fracking.
We have a number of topics we're going to get to.
That's a big question.
We're going to get to.
It's the same thing with socialized medicine.
I have to respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Tristan, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's let Vice President Biden respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your response.
confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that are going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare, come on.
He tried to get rid of, he
Mr.
tried to
President,
hurt
and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right, let's move
but
on.
This
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that when they announced
Mr. President, I have to move
last
on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
gonna
will
have time
boom
to talk about it.
if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the
analysts are
next
saying
question.
Let me respond.
Very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars. Because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to move on.
401ks are through the roof.
We're going to move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All right.
And he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew it.
We're going to move on to
and
the
he
next
left.
question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
The Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice
it.
President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they could keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with these guys?
The bill that was passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high-crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. we were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
If I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly,
want
he
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
recently. We have
recently.
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but what I really like, in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick response, Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through merit.
But how will you reunite these kids with their families,
Let me just tell you,
Mr. President?
they built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages, and then they had a picture in a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them, and then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you have a plan to reunite the kids?
Yes, we're working on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
They did it. We changed.
did not
They built the
separate
cages.
They-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I
about
will say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down.
seconds,
We
and then
brought
I need to ask
reporters,
you.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
that
of
have
them
gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask them that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because it made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy, and they want to do that, is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've
We
changed
did.
without having a specific. We got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But they're
President
very,
Trump, let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You
next
don't know
section.
the law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about
Let's
it
move
anymore.
on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about our next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and She's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child, when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. But guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform, Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice President?
My response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you do it? You were vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up
questions. If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this where you're going? This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President, you've described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know. I don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. They can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay. Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a
No,
follow-up question.
he made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm saying-
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly, in jail.
All right, let me-
And you know
let me
what?
a- let me
they
ask
remember
Vice
it because
President
if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime
Okay.
bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
You didn't get
38,000.
anything
We got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running, to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens
Because-
of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe. Sometimes
All right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running out of
already done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit of emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
They came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. Right. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President respond, and we're running out of time, and we have a lot more questions to get to. So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more questions.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queens.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor, because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
Excuse me.
please respond, and then I have some follow-ups.
We are energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds, it's very intermittent, it's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So
False.
It's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
All right, let me allow
fracking.
Vice President Biden to respond.
I never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it, but it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then we have.
He was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking or oil on federal land.
Let me ask this final question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they are making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. Okay. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again. And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutants the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I would
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give
All right.
it to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then
Ohio.
I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context, but the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question
China
to
to
both
do
of
it?
you. No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country. Decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. That 90 minutes went by very quickly for me.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was impressed. I was impressed with the moderator, who I described as a Democrat. That's an accurate description. She is a Democrat from a Democrat family. Oh, there's Melania Trump with her husband, and there's what's her name? Sue Biden. Am I right with that? Mrs. Biden.
Jill Biden?
Jill Biden. You know what? Forgive me. Joe Biden himself forgets her name, so permit me for. Now, Melania is wearing a mask, as are both of the Bidens there. Just to say hello again, I'm Ezra Levant, Rebel Commander here at rebelnews.com. My friend Sheila Gunn-Reid, our chief reporter out west. Sheila, I started 2 hours ago by saying that the moderator tonight, Kristen Welker, is a Democrat, and indeed she is. But I have to say, I thought she was pretty fair. And I thought the topics were fair. I thought she was prickly and on roughly an even basis. I thought she permitted candidates to respond to swipes. I don't think she commented on things. Like, she had a few comments herself. She, she described. I mean, she wasn't completely neutral, but that was by far the most neutral debate I've seen in the United States in various election cycles. Not just this season, but 4 years ago and 4 years before that. I thought both candidates did fairly well for their teams too. There wasn't too much crosstalk. I think the microphone muting thing actually sort of worked. And let me say this about Donald Trump, who I thought did not do particularly well last time. I thought he did very well this time. I have one criticism. I think he was a little vague, and I didn't understand all of his allusions when he was talking about some of the Hunter Biden revelations. I don't think he made it clear what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He took the bait and was too defensive on his own income taxes for too long. But other than that, Trump was excellent. I thought he was very strong on helping Black Americans with tangibles, investment zones, money for historically Black colleges and universities. I thought he was really tough on Biden on Black prisoners. Now, I don't know the percentage of Black Americans who are going to vote for Trump, but boy, they got the case made today. But you know what? Absolutely no doubt about it. The highlight of the debate, I'm not going to call it a kill shot. I don't think there was one. But the moment that was surprising, I think I gasped out loud, was when Joe Biden said he believed the oil industry needed to be phased out. And Trump couldn't believe it. He sort of said, wow, mark that. I mean, it was so shocking. And Trump wisely let Biden keep talking. And Biden did keep talking. It wasn't a gaffe. He means it. And his Green New Deal and the AOC, I mean, when Trump was talking about $100 trillion, okay, maybe, maybe not. But when you heard out of Biden's own mouth, I will phase out the oil industry. What? By the way, the demand for oil in the world has never been higher. It's dipped over the last 6 months because of the pandemic, but that is not a structural dip. That's just a temporary dip. Oil and gas booming across America. You saw Biden say, oh, no, I'm not against fracking. You can frack both oil and gas, by the way.
Yep.
But then he says, oh yeah, I'd phase out oil. Oil, a multi-trillion-dollar industry, an essentially American industry, an industry in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, Alaska, all the Gulf states. That, to me, was an incredible moment. And I know the mainstream media doesn't care, because the mainstream media lives in New York, Washington, and LA. And they don't think about oil, although they love their private jets and their cars. But so many Americans work in oil and gas. I know for a fact 200,000 people in Pennsylvania work directly for oil and gas fracking, and then those who depend on them. When Joe Biden says, I will phase out oil, Trump says, whoa, and Biden repeats it. Oh, I predict, Sheila, you will see ads in Pennsylvania tomorrow on that. That was as close as a kill shot as you got tonight, in my view. Last point, Trump was strong on immigration, at least for his base. He was talking to Black Americans very strongly. That's not his base. That's his growth area. But boy, was he strong on, deportations and ICE and people not showing up for their immigration hearings. He was strong on that last point. He was excellent on the Paris Global Warming Accords and saying windmills. And even when Joe Biden said, oh, I don't like Black people living near factories, and Trump said, what, they're making a lot of money. I thought it was a strong performance by Trump. He controlled himself. The format helped control him, as in the mics being off. The moderator exceeded my expectations. I thought it was a great debate. I really enjoyed it. It went by quickly. I'm going to give it to Trump on points.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we saw Trump at his best behavior. He really knew the numbers. Speaking, when, like you, I was amazed at his list when he spoke directly to Black America. Before we came on air, I see the Breitbart published a clip of Joe Biden in the 70s using the N-word enough times to make Wendy Mesley blush. So, you know, Donald Trump's track record speaks for itself. Another thing that I noticed that I thought maybe Joe Biden needs to call his friend Kamala Harris and talk about is that he advocates for no jail for drug crimes. And I thought, well, that is something that the drug cartels are definitely going to abuse. I'm not trafficking drugs. I'm just addicted. But we know that Kamala Harris was disproportionately locking up black perpetrators of drug crimes when she was the top cop. And so that's another thing that Joe Biden seems to be out of step with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is shamelessly against fracking. She absolutely is. Yeah. And, you know, and Joe Biden, he might say he's against fracking, but when at the end of the debate, he says, oh, but we need to transition. Those are such Trudeau words, by the way. We need to transition away from fossil fuels. Well, then you can't be pro-fracking. Yeah. You have to be against fracking if you're going to transition away from it. And Trump immediately identified the states that would hurt. He said, are you listening, Texas? Are you listening, Oklahoma? He pointed out to those voters in those states, this guy's going to put you out of work. And I thought that was a very powerful moment.
Yeah, not that Texas or Oklahoma, although some Democrats.
They don't need the help.
Yeah, but Pennsylvania is absolutely a knife's edge state. And the county that made the difference last time is Washington County on the west side of the state, where fracking basically saved coal dying, steel dying. Fracking came in and gave everyone hope. So you can't say transition away from that. You want fracking to grow. 200,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. Those are new jobs. This is not a sunset industry. This is not some ancient, salt mine that's been there since the medieval times. Fracking is 10 years old. So it's not. It is not a phase-out sunset industry. Not that any industry should be phased out by a politician, but it's the industry that came in to save the day in the Rust Belt. These are the towns that Bruce Springsteen would sing about. Foreman says these jobs are going, boys, and they ain't coming back from his song, My Hometown. Very sad song. All his songs were about Rust Belt towns shutting down because the steel and the coal were going where? Going to China. Joe Biden's paymaster. Fracking. You know what? I know people in New York and California don't care about fracking, although they should, because there's a lot of fracking could be done in New York.
Yep.
But for people who actually work for a living, those union members that Joe Biden was talking about, hard hat guys, fracking, oil and gas, trucking, pipelines, that's been so much of the economic success of America in the last 4 years. Trump opening up drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Trump ending Obama's restrictions in the Gulf. And even in the debate, Joe Biden was saying, well, I'm against fracking on federal lands. Why? And even on that, he proved that you can't trust him. I thought that was a big, do we have, Justin, do we have the clip? I don't know if it's too early to grab that clip of the exchange on oil and gas. I thought it was incredible. And I think Joe Biden doesn't know, and is probably being told right now in frantic phone calls from his organizers in Pennsylvania, Ohio. There's fracking in Colorado. There's fracking anywhere there's shale, there's potential fracking. You look at a map that's a lot of fracking. Sheila, I know you want to make a point. Go ahead and then we'll watch the video. Go ahead.
No, the point I was going to make is it's not just the workers. I've seen the movie Frack Nation. It sits on my shelf in my office here, and your friend Phelan McAleer made it to tell the story of how fracking saved Pennsylvania, because it didn't just provide jobs. It did something else, and that was that it saved family farms in Pennsylvania because the jobs dried up. People were losing their farms, but the lease agreements with the fracking companies provided extra revenue to save family farms. So it's not just these people who work in fracking that Joe Biden stands to absolutely destroy. It's everybody else in those communities too.
Yeah. Oh, that's for sure. I've been to Pennsylvania's fracking counties so many times, and just the hardware stores, the truck stores, I remember talking to the barbecue guy who like you have a frack pad. You have up to 250 men working there.
Yep.
Well, and in the middle of nowhere, they can't just order an Uber Eats like if you're living in Brooklyn. So the barbecue guy who feeds the men, You know, there's so many people. I just sent you a map, Justin. If you click on that, I want to show folks shale, and forgive me for going heavy on this, but this is one of my favorite subjects. I know Sheila's got a foot in the oil and gas industry too. Her family's half ag, half oil. Sheila's in the oil province of Alberta, which has more accessible oil than any other country in the world, is in oil that's not owned by an OPEC tyranny. So, yeah, just click on that map just to boost it a bit. So this is, so those are, you can see at the top there, the shale that goes across from North Dakota into Saskatchewan. That's an enormous amount of fracking. You can see to the east, do you know where Pennsylvania is on the map? Marcellus Shale, and then down south in Texas, obviously. And so all those red, that's shale. You got your oil and gas. You got oil and gas in California. You can see it's in Colorado. You can see it's even in New York, but they won't let them drill there. It's in Ohio. It's in, you know, it's an amazing, amazing thing that until 10 years ago was actually useless, because it's just oil in shale rock. How do you even get it out? So what you see there, it doesn't look like a political map. That's literally a kind of geological formation called shale that has oil droplets and gas droplets in it. That's the map that Joe Biden, could put up just for one more second. That's the map that Joe Biden declared war on. So you can see Washington, D.C., not on the map. New York City, not on the map. There actually is oil and gas right in Los Angeles, but it's sort of hidden. But all those red spots there, that's what Joe Biden declared war on today. Now, there was no chance he was going to get North or South Dakota. There was no chance he was going to get Montana. I don't think Texas was really in play. But look at where it is. You got Ohio. You got Pennsylvania. Joe Biden declared war on, I guess you could say, the red states. But red in this case is shale oil and gas. All right, I'm done talking about shale oil and gas, Sheila.
It's just remarkable. And Joe Biden, I think there was a moment where he realized I said something really dumb. Because when Trump repeated it back to him, he said, "Oh, you're taking me out of context."
Yeah, we just heard the context,
hear what
buddy.
he said.
We literally just heard you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have that clip, Justin? Sorry, I'm throwing at you things in real time, but I'd love to watch that again. And I know people are saying, okay, Ezra, we get it. Yeah, oil and gas. But no. There are so many millions of workers who think, whoa, you're coming for me, especially with Joe Biden saying, oh, the unions love me, and the unions, and don't worry, this Green New Deal, there's going to be trillions of jobs. Yeah, but everyone who works in oil and gas or pipeline or trucking, they heard you loud and clear. Here, let's watch the clip again. Let's take a look.
What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions, the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry?
By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Whoa, that's
transition.
A big statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a
because
big statement.
I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal. But
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give it to solar and wind.
We
and
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have to get to the final question.
You know, I didn't recall that it was Trump who sparked that, because remember, it was the sort of strange thing about, I thought it was a strange question. I've heard of this obscure Marxist concept called environmental racism, where you say, oh, look, visible minorities live near a factory. There's a little bit more particulate pollution or whatever near the, Joe Biden says when he grew up there were oil slicks on his window. I'm sorry, I don't believe that.
No,
I also don't
definitely
believe that in the year 2020. I I mean, I was just in Louisiana a few months ago. I was in Texas in the Permian Basin.
I live up the road from a refinery.
These are clean. It's clean. It's clean. Like he's just.
Yeah.
I don't know what world he's living in. And if you're living near a factory or a refinery, maybe you work there, or maybe it's because you live in more affordable accommodation. Like it was such a weird question, but the host put the question to Biden. So Biden answered it with that weird oil slick story. But as you just saw in the replay, it was Trump who asked the question, would you close down the oil industry? I like how he says it. He just quietly said, would you close down the oil industry?
Yeah.
And Biden not only answered, he answered honestly. And Trump just said, why would you do that? Or sorry, no, Trump didn't say that. Pardon me. The host joined in.
Yes,
Trump
he did.
said, would you close down the oil industry? He said, yeah, phase it out. And the host picked it up, which I give her credit for. She didn't shut it down because it came from Trump. She didn't shut it down because it hurt Biden. She didn't shut it down because it was about something she didn't bring up. I give that Democrat credit. She did what a curious journalist, a skeptical journalist ought to do, which is to say, what do you mean? Or as she said, why would you do that? Why would you do that? A 5-word question. And Joe Biden said, I'm going to phase it out. And Trump, he looked to the camera, he said, remember this. This is the moment.
Yep.
Texas, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Colorado, all those places, Louisiana, Alaska. Not that some of those are Democrat. That was the moment in the debate.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that was it was Biden's we're going to put a lot of coal miners out of work moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's he had that moment there. And really, if Joe Biden really thinks that we need to phase out gas, then he needs to get his son to quit taking money from Russian gas companies, maybe, because that's paying the bills. I mean, he thinks that American workers can all make Burisma money working on the windmills of the future. But he's not really against oil and gas. He's pro-hobbling the American economy to please, I guess, the radical parts of the Democrat Party.
You know, about a decade ago, I wrote a book called Ethical Oil. Why don't you throw that on the screen just to prove it to folks who don't know? I wrote a book called Ethical Oil, The Case for Canada's Oil Sands. And people were sort of startled because the words ethical and oil were not often juxtaposed. I made the case that oil in Canada, just like oil in the United States, and I've almost finished listing the only nice countries in the world that oil comes from. There's a little bit in Norway, there's a little bit in the North Sea off the UK, Scotland. So there's my book, look at that. It's almost 10 years, it's 10 years ago because that's the paperback.
Changed the whole conversation.
There you go, but there actually is ethical oil. The 4 criteria I used to judge it were, number 1, is it environmentally responsible? Number 2, is it peaceful? It doesn't support tyrannical regimes. Number 3, do the grassroots workers actually get some of the money? I'm not talking about the Hunter Biden, Burisma board members, but the grassroots workers. And finally, is it produced in a manner respecting civil rights, Aboriginal rights, women's rights, gay rights, whatever? Thanks for showing it. I just wanted to remind people that I actually wrote that book. And the thing people would always say is, oh, shut down oil, phase out oil. And I said, well, hang on, why are you starting with the world's most ethical oil? Because if you turn off the taps in Canada's oil sands, and now let's apply it to the debate we just saw, if you turn off the taps in those shale areas we just showed, do you think Americans are going to drive 1 mile less? No, all that's going to happen is America will once again be dependent on oil from the worst places in the world. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Venezuela, Sudan. I mean, what are you doing? America is finally a net energy exporter, first time in history.
Yep.
Don't you think for 1 second that oil or gas will stop being used in America? before fracking came in, the price of natural gas was so high, Sheila, they built all these LNG. Can you grab me a picture of an LNG facility, Justin? Not everyone knows what that stands for, liquefied natural gas. So they would pump natural gas. They would drill for it and get it in, again, worst countries in the world. What are the 3 biggest countries in the world that make natural gas before America came along? I'll tell you. Russia, Iran, and Qatar. Can you name 3 worst countries? So Qatar, especially, seriously, the most odious regime in the world, possibly with the exception of Iran. Qatar, sponsor of ISIS. Russia and Iran, you know them. So Qatar basically invented the LNG industry, these ships that look like, can you just show me an LNG ship, Justin? It's like they got these big balls in them.
Bubbles.
That's not quite an LNG ship. No, an LNG, just type in LNG ship. And it looks like it's got these bubbles on it. And they would bring these to America. So they built all these LNG loading docks along, that's what they're weird. They got those bubbles, right? What's with the bubbles? Well, when you supercool the natural gas, it turns liquid. So it's so much more dense than a gas. You put them in these very strange ships. Aren't they strange? They're almost all Qatari. These are Qatari ships. And they would come from Qatar or Qatar, and they would sell them around the world to Japan, to Korea, to Taiwan, to India. And then they were bringing it to America. Can you believe it? I hate to even think of it. God-fearing, red-blooded Americans were going to buy natural gas from Russia, Qatar, and Iran. And then, God bless it, fracking came along, and all of a sudden those same LNG docks are now exporting natural gas. It's the biggest miracle in the world. But what's this 5-minute long rant all about, Sheila? Don't think for 1 second, if you phase out oil and gas in the United States, that production, that Americans will stop driving or using natural gas. They will simply replace natural gas from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, Colorado, California, with natural gas and oil from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and all those terrible, terrible places. When Joe Biden says phase out oil, he does not mean phase out OPEC oil. When Joe Biden says transition away from oil and gas, he doesn't mean for Saudi Arabia or Iran. He means for American workers, and he's for American customers to buy imported gas at a higher world price, because you're taking out the world's largest manufacturer now. America makes as much oil and gas as the Saudis. You take that off the market, the price is higher, and you're paying foreigners. That is, but you have the best point of the night. You're saying this to the dad of Hunter Biden, who's making $183,000 per month selling Ukrainian natural gas. All right, my rant is done.
I want to add to your rant here, because if you phase out American fracking, you know who you are instantly going to help, and it's not quite Russia. Well, it is Russia, but you know who? A global shale gas study by the U.S. Energy Information Administration said China's technically recoverable shale gas reserves were almost 50% higher than those of the number 2 nation, the United States.
Yeah.
So if you care about China's influence on the world, then you better get fracking in your own country, because they will start fracking once coal becomes uneconomical for them.
Yeah. You know what? We're certainly focusing on it, and people are probably saying, all right, enough already with the talk about fracking and oil. But I think Trump scored a direct hit on Biden's battleship.
Yeah, right at the very end, too. Right at the very end.
Oh, yeah, and it was him. He's the one who said, would you close down the industry? And then Biden walked right into it. And God bless that Democrat who said, why would you do that? Those 5 little words.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get to the super chats, because so many super chats, we got to catch up. Do you want to start whipping through them?
Sure, because it's after 11 where you're at. Greg Orr gives us $5.49. No super chat. Thank you very much. Ashley Cohen, $4.99. Kim Price Finnemore, $5. Ms. Bliss, $10 Australian. Real News, thank you. No, thank you. Donovan Brewster gives us $5. Thanks to both of you and the entire Rebel News team for working so hard at personal risk to be real journalists. Much appreciated always. Yeah, every one of us that's in front of the camera, we have 2 or 3 other people behind the camera who are helping us look and be our very best. That's for sure. Jake Dam gives us $5. Should Alberta 51 hinge on Trump's re-election? Would President Harris be better than Trudeau? Sorry for spelling his name wrong. I think it may be hate speech. It's okay. I corrected it for you. No, because Harris would immediately shut down everything. She's against fracking, and we do a substantial amount of fracking here in Alberta. So even if they allowed conventional oil and gas, it would shut down our entire fracking sector. Raven Rose gives us $20. Trudeau's Paradise Paper FM was Stephen Bronfman. His cousin bankrolled Nexium. Sarah Bronfman wed Bassett Leggett of the Muslim Brotherhood in Syria. I don't know anything about that, and I know a lot about Nexium, more than I should know. MEDW gives us $2. Kian the Puzzler's latest video was tremendous. Are you talking about his little mini documentary from his trip to British Columbia? I thought he did fantastic work there, telling the other side of the story about a protest that really should be central to the BC election, but it isn't.
Yeah, the Puzzler, brings back fond memories. I'm not sure what the Puzzler's up to right now. I'm not sure if he's Edmonton or back in Calgary.
I think he's back in Calgary.
Yeah, you know what? Fond memories, and thank you for bringing back all the visual images of the Puzzler working on them puzzles. It keeps the mind sharp. Keeps the mind sharp.
That's why they put him in old folks' homes,
There you go.
Rob Bonazinga gives us $5 Australian. R.I.P. Joe Rogan. Diane Kowalewski gives us $10. So love you both. Thanks for all you do. Thank you very much. Keeping it real to real gives us $20. Very generous, but I don't see a super chat. Fifi Spot gives us $2.79. First time viewer. Had to find some like minds. Well, I hope that you found a few of them in the live chat. They're pretty friendly in there. RW Hockey gives us $5. BS Scamdemic. Peter Toth gives us $20. Thanks for giving an honest perspective from a Canadian viewpoint. Oh, you're welcome. RW Hockey gives us $5. Operation Warp Speed is tyranny, people. RW Hockey again gives us $5. Both of these guys are Jesuit puppets. I'm pretty sure Trump's not Catholic, and Biden depends on the day. Kim Price Finnemore gives us $5. I don't see a super chat. Simple Man gives us $5. Sheila, the World Bank edited out COVID-19 from the description, but I found it on archive.org. I did see that you sent me an email. I will look into that. Fubar Snafu gives us $50. Thanks very much. Sorry, Sheila and Ezra, but I've decided to let you watch this so I don't have to. No, you missed a good time, actually.
Oh, you know what? I'm so pleased that I watched it. I enjoyed it. I even enjoyed Joe Biden talking, even though I disagreed with every word of it. And as we've been saying for 20 minutes now, there was a definite palpable hit that was done.
Yeah, I kept track on my Bidenometer. There were 3 references to Claymont, 1 Malarkey, 2 Scrantons, and 1 unforced Hitler. Very strange debate night. And Trump looked great, by the way. Sorry, I know we're trying to breeze through these super chats, but Trump looked great. Like, he just had COVID-19 last week.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. His diet of Big Macs and KFC is doing him right. I'm doing it all wrong. Yeah. And Biden looked like the guy at the end of RoboCop that fell in the acid bath. Like, I felt like he was going to fall apart at any second.
Oh, funny. Yeah.
Okay. RW Hockey also gives us another $5. Vaccine for a 99.9% recovery rate, 83 average age of death. No one knows anyone who has it. You need to be tested to know you have it. Anon gives us $5. Geez. She always wanted to give Biden the last word. I thought as far as debate moderators go, she was pretty good. She had some pretty Democrat-y questions in there, but whatever, Trump handled them fine. Francois Depotoir gives us $5 and then plugs his personal website. Ezra, you want to take it from here?
Sure. RW Hockey, $5. Fauci, another Jesuit. See how she, you know what? I just don't think that's the root of the problem.
No.
I just don't think that's relevant. I think that there's the public health deep state. That's an issue. I think the fact that there's medical doctors who practice with private patients and have a duty to a patient, and then there's politicians with MDs who are public health officers, and there's an ideological divide. I think public health doctors, they pray, if you're going to use that metaphor, to the World Health Organization, which is the problem. They're all downloading the globalist Chinese propaganda from there. But I don't think it has anything to do with Jesuits. In fact, the opposite. I think at the center of it is China, which is hostile to Christianity of any form. Derek Sheed, $2, moderator plus debater equals motivator. But you know what? Got to say, it was the least meddlesome debate host in years in America. And on $10 to laugh out loud about Biden and his Hitler reference. Well, we did work with Stalin and other thug life. It's not as black and white as you think. Joe life is full of compromises. Yeah, he just, you know, the Hitler thing, of course.
Who brings it up late?
Yeah,
who brings it up? Just leave it alone.
MEDW, $2. The moderator debated Trump more than Biden. Why? You know, I bet you there's people who have counted them and timed things, and that may be true, but I didn't find it distracting. I don't think it pushed the debate off course. It was the opposite of the Leslie Stahl 73 interruptions in the 37-minute interview on 60 Minutes that we saw today. Canada Ride, $2. Medi-Biden Care Assurance. That's a good one. That's a good word for Scrabble. Peter Burke, $5. Notice she never interrupts Joe. Now that may be, but I would need someone to review that carefully for me to believe that, because I think she was much more even. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't accept that without someone counting it up and counting the minutes, because it felt a lot less interrupty. Diane Kovaleski, $5. Sleepy Joe appears to be nodding out at times. Yeah, but he didn't have a major gaffe, and he managed to say the first line from the Pledge of Allegiance, which he didn't before. I thought that was good. Sativa and me, $5. Total smackdown by Trump, I think. And on $5, those kids without parents. Parents abandon them easy. Either that or they were never their parents in the first place. I think a lot of people know there's an enormous amount of human trafficking of young children and young girls, especially on the Mexican border. It's basically paying coyotes in flesh. And I think it's a disgrace. And I think it's actually feeds the pedophilia trafficking machine. I think so much of it is at the border there. And you know, I don't put a lot of stock in QAnon, but when they talk about child trafficking and pedophilia, that is a real thing. And it's a real thing that Donald Trump has cracked down on harder than any other president. And for some reason, that irks the left. And I point to Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein as proof that the establishment often turns a blind eye to child trafficking. So good for Trump for cracking down on it. I'll read a couple more, then I'll hand it back to Sheila. Tempera, $1,900, $5. Vote early, vote Trump. This is America's last chance. Oh, there's so much at stake. I'll agree with you on that. Proud Boys, Calgary, $7. Joe, every parent teaches their kids how to interact with police, but thanks for being the PB Recruiter of the Year, proudboyscanada.com. You know, I think that there are issues for black Americans and police. There are issues, absolutely. But I think that a lot of police are black. And I think that a lot of the victims of crime are black. And if the crime is in the black community, unfortunately, it's black perpetrators and black victims, and often black cops. So simply saying it's a racial issue, I mean, Chicago on any given weekend has more shootings of black young men than probably I'm not going to say the rest of America combined, but it's got to be close some days. To say that's just an issue of police racism is factually false. If you look at the places where black crime and black interactions with police are the worst, it's in Democrat cities that have a host of related problems. Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Detroit, and
Chicago.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that race isn't an issue, but I think that people who ascribe all the problems to race as an issue are looking for a way to avoid other responsibility. And can you grab Kimberly Klacik's first viral vid? She's done two. I had the pleasure of spending half a day in Baltimore with Kimberly Klacik as she took me through the worst parts of Baltimore. So bad that people would walk away abandoning homes. Every second home was abandoned. There were trees growing in these homes. Homeless people in there. There was no garbage. It was like, it was the worst place. And we talked to people. It wasn't about Trump or black or white or Republican. It was just utter dysfunction, almost like a failed state. And let me know when we got that Kim Klacik vid, because she's this tough, smart, telegenic black woman, and she's not, and she's moving away from the racial grievance narrative of the Democrats towards who wants to fix this with me. I'll let Justin let me know when we got that vid. Sorry for the 5-minute bender there, but I think that I don't think Kimberly Klasik's going to win. I mean, Baltimore is what's that, 85% Democrat place. But boy, is she inspirational. Let's just take a look. It sounds like Justin's found it. The first one. You got the first one? Here we go. Let's take a look.
Do you care about Black lives? The people that run Baltimore don't. I can prove it. Walk with me. They don't want you to see this. I'm Kim Klacik. This is Baltimore, the real Baltimore. This is the reality for Black people every single day. Crumbling infrastructure, abandoned homes, poverty, and crime. Baltimore has been run by the Democrat Party for 53 years. What is the result of their decades of leadership? Baltimore is one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in America. The murder rate in Baltimore is 10 times the US average. The Baltimore poverty rate is over 20%. Homicide, drug, and alcohol deaths are skyrocketing in our city. Do you believe Black Lives Matter? I do. The vast majority of crime in Baltimore is perpetrated against Black people, who make up 60% of the population. So why don't we care about our communities? The Democrat Party have betrayed the Black people of Baltimore. If the politicians walked the streets like I do, they would see exactly how their policies and corruption affects us. But they don't want to see it. They don't want you to see this. Go to any Baltimore neighborhood and ask this question. Do you want to defund the police?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. I had 3 sons killed in Baltimore City. And I think if we defund the police office, it's going to be worse than that. So no, I'm opposed to that.
What are you going to defund the police for? Why? How do you defend your city, your community? Families are losing people.
It's not just Baltimore. The worst place for a Black person to live in America is a Democrat-controlled city. It's 2020. Name a blue city where Black people's lives have gotten better. Try. I'll wait. Look at this. How are children supposed to live here and play here? Democrats think Black people are stupid. They think they can control us forever, that we won't demand better and that we'll keep voting for them forever, despite what they've done to our families and our communities. Are they right? I'm Kim Klacik, and I'm running for Congress because I actually care about Black lives. All Black lives matter. Our communities matter. Baltimore matters. And Black people don't have to vote Democrat.
Well, there you have it, Kimberly Klacik, a different narrative altogether. I really liked that, and I did spend the half a day walking the streets with her. Sorry for that detour. You know, it's 11:16, and I know that there's some people who made super chats probably an hour and a half ago. Sheila, do you want to jump in and be less distractible than I am? I'm like, oh, shiny beads. Oh, tangent. Oh, let me tell you a story from 10 years ago. Let me tell you a story of, hey, 10 years ago I wrote a book.
Yeah, you have a few Biden moments when you're going through the super chats. That's for sure. Our friend Yankee has messaged me, and he wants me to remind everybody who's watching right now, there's still about 3,000 of you. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, but especially hitting the like button because that helps us get around sort of the smothering of the YouTube algorithm. It helps more people find what we're doing here at Rebel News. Okay, I'll get into these now. Proud Boys Calgary again gives us $2.79. I'm just a poor boy. I need no sympathy. Yeah, he called you guys poor boys instead of Proud Boys. I caught that.
Poor boys. That's right.
He doesn't even know what's going on. Is Corn Pop a poor boy? Truth of Things, $2. Joe, I'm gonna Biden. Yeah, also, he said, come on, man. I marked it down. I got to like 17 times that he said, come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. Crypto Trailer gives us $5. Go Trump, go 4 more years. Then we've got Diane Kowalewski again, $5. Sheila, it looks like you're ready to pull your hair out. There were points at which, yes, ma'am. Proud Boys Calgary gives us $2.79. I'm just a poor boy. Nobody loves me. Crypto Trailer gives us $2. They can move. Jean Gagné gives us $10. You know when Biden's lying? When his lips are moving. At about 45 minutes in, I think his cocktail of ephedrine and B vitamins started to wear off a little bit. It sounded like his dentures got a little loose about then. Annalise the S gives us $6.99. He's just a poor boy from a poor family. K gives us £4. Clean energy creates temporary new jobs, but millions of jobs will be lost that will never return. Remember that, America. Exactly. John S., $10. Genesis 8:22, King James Version, which for some reason is Ezra's most favorite version, but we'll have to talk about that off air. While the earth remaineth seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Kevin M. Clerks gives us $5. Everything in our modern world exists because of our oil and gas. Millions of new green jobs would only be created at the loss of millions of oil jobs. And the amount of subsidies required to create those jobs, if you ever stopped subsidizing them, the jobs dry up instantly.
You know, my friend who runs the pro-fossil fuels guy, what's the Center for Industrial something. He likes, I just forgot his think tank. He's in LA. He always says, don't call it renewables and non-renewables. Call it reliables and non-reliables.
What a great way to put it.
Because, sometimes if the wind is just right, not too windy, not windy enough, just right. And if it's a solar panel, if it's not windy, it's not cloudy and not nighttime and not snow on it, if it's just right, but it's not reliable. Nothing's more reliable. I suppose nuclear is reliable, but coal and gas. Anyhow, so I just wanted to, renewables, non-renewables, what's that got to do with is it reliable or not?
Right. MEDW gives us $5. Trump wins hands down as soon as Joe admits to phasing out U.S. oil in favor of all oil outside of North America and supporting globalist agenda. Thank you, Joe. Yeah. Trump caught him in that right away. And totally unforced error. Biden didn't even have to answer him, but he did. Paul Schofield gives us $5. Ending U.S. fracking would be like closing the oil sands in Alberta. Yes, exactly. Jack Krauser gives us $6.99. Trump won big time. Red tsunami. From your lips to God's ears. Jack. Shaw gives us $5. We need a Trump in Canada to resurrect Alberta's oil industry. Thanks for the show. Oh, you're very welcome. Flat Earth Data gives us $6.99. Isn't the Earth the greenest it's been in 25 years and now enters, I think you mean solar minimum, less CME radiation, magnetic poles reversing, meaning cooler. There's a reason that people who own greenhouses pump CO2 into the greenhouse to make the plants grow. So more CO2, more greenery. I think at a time when in Earth's history, when there was the most biodiversity, which is the thing that, lefties care about, was when there was maximum CO2 in the atmosphere millions of years ago. Wise and Frosty gives us $5. I think you can always judge a boss by the people they hire. 12 out of 10, Ezra. Rebel is very special. Thank you and every staff member for their hard work. Yeah, you can judge a boss that way. I'll let you do that.
Well, there's a phrase, personnel is policy. And let me indulge myself for 1 minute. What are you going to do? Stop me?
You're the boss.
I look at the quality of people we have here at Rebel News, and we're hiring new teammates from time to time, all the time. This year has been a great year. And I compare that to the National Post, that for 3 years hired lefties right out of woke school. And now look at them, calling for Rex Murphy to be defenestrated, unionizing with some radical anti-conservative union. When you hire people, you make a statement about who you are, not just about who you're hiring. And it's a bloody shame. I worked at the National Post 20 years ago when it stood for something. Now it's no different from any of the other woke papers in town.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something nice about the people you hired, but forget it. I'll just move on.
By that, I absolutely do I look at the people we hire as a reflection of who we are. And it matters. And I mean, SHEILA, you're the number one favorite in the company, but I look at the other teammates, Drea Humphrey, just doing a great job.
Good.
David Menzies always makes us chuckle. Kian Bexey just killing it even in the documentary today. I don't want to list everybody because our team is so large now, even down under, Avi Yamini. Okay, enough for the intramural commercial. Back to the Super Chats.
Great. John Moore gives us $10. SHEILA, as a prairie girl, do you have a cattle prod? I do not. You should have had one and used it on that little man, Dion Buse. Would love to have been there. You know what, though? Then the story would have been rebel reporter assaults somebody at a women's march. So we just let the courts deal with it as best as they could, I guess. Gold Star gives us $10. SHEILA and EZRA's analysis is more incisive than any in the U.S. Oh, thank you. Thank you, John Van Loan. Reg Porter gives us $10. Biden has one blue and one brown eye. He is quart low on blood. But he's not friendly to the petroleum industry. That's very funny. Michael Gambino gives, Ezra, you go ahead. You take
Sure. From down under, looks like 50 smackers. That's very nice. Thank you. We love the debate coverage on Rebel News because it's uninterrupted. Your analysis is great. And we get to laugh along with SHEILA Gunn Reid and enjoy her reactions along the way. Lots of love from Melbourne, Australia. Well, Michael, I was just mentioning Avi Yamini, who I think is like a one-man army. And he's doing such a great job in Melbourne. Even The Age and Channel 9 have to recognize that the lad is making a difference. I think we're bringing a little bit more freedom to that town. I've had the pleasure of visiting Melbourne, and I hope to return. Stupid Leftist chips in $7. Thank you very much and I'm sure that's an ironic name. Jay Barrett, $25. Thank you, Rebel. Watched every minute with you starting before you went live. Love your commentary. That's nice of you. Thanks. Hockey Dad, $5. Have you guys watched Michael Moore's Planet of the Humans documentary? Even Michael Moore now admits the Green Energy scam. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I watched clips of it, and I saw that he got in trouble for talking about some of the scams of it. SHEILA?
Yeah, he did. They wanted him canceled. They wanted his video taken off YouTube. They once a darling of the left. As soon as you break with their orthodoxy on all the things that they hold dear in their left-wing religion, then he was excommunicated.
Victoria Greenfield, $5. Biden lied about the intelligence community exonerating him over the laptop. The DNA.
He did.
DNI flat out said that wasn't true. Yeah, he had a bunch of deep state Democrats say, "Oh, we think it could be Russian." That was pretty weak, but it might work for low information voters on the left. I don't know. Victoria Greenfield, I read that one already. Filomeno Brashki, $5. Great analogy of the debate tonight. Americans vote for Trump 2020. Geez, we're going to find out in just a few weeks. Shah, $5. Pelosi holding out on Trump's stimulus because she wants it to include bailout for Democrat states that are going bankrupt because of corrupt mismanagement. That's one reason. Another is she will do anything, make anyone pay a price to hobble Trump in the next few weeks. That's why all these cities remain in lockdown. Any bad news, any self-destructive behavior you see in the United States over the next few weeks has one purpose only: to hurt Trump collaterally. So you're going to see bad behavior, you're going to see crises, emergencies. Expect Cuomo to declare a crisis, expect California crisis. Oh my God, it's so terrible because they can blame Trump. Shadow Barretto, $7. I missed the debate. I got snippets of it. Who won in the opinion? Please continue following the quarantine centers being built. I think Trump won. And I think the most important part was the discussion where Trump managed to get Biden to admit he wants to shut down the oil industry. SHEILA, why don't you take over?
Sure, I will. Paulo Keglies gives us $5. What is going to happen to our WE case? Well, talk to the NDP about that because there was going to be an investigation and they squashed it.
Can I just,
sorry, go ahead, please.
SHEILA, I just want to invite you, if you haven't done so, go to auditwe.com. Audit, A-U-D-I-T, we.com. I don't know if you know this, but we contracted a law firm to file a legal complaint about we to the CRA for violating charity law. So I encourage you to go to auditwe.com. Thank you for finding that so quickly, Jason. And we also have a petition. Sorry, I call you Jason. Justin. And we have a petition there as well. So thanks for bringing that up. Sorry, SHEILA, I interrupted you. Why don't you keep on going?
No, I'm glad you brought that up because we seem to be the only people doing our best to hold the We charity organization to account. House of Commons can't do it right now. Caliber 922 sorry, gives us $10. Charlie CCC gives us $2.99. Giuliani sent hard drive to DE police for child porn. I'm not quite sure if that was on the hard drive. Some people have said yes, some people have said no. Unjust, Trudeau, $2. Seriously, how long would Biden last as president? I think that's the whole point, is that he wouldn't last.
It'll be a weekend at Bernie situation. They'll keep him around as long as possible. He'll go days or weeks without making a public appearance. So he is the figurehead while the hardcore activists run the show from behind the scenes.
Yep. Alan Harkin gives us $14.99 from South Carolina, a gay guy no less. I love you guys in your consistent pursuit of truth about the hard left. I don't use the term liberal, insults liberals. Ezra, you are the Canadian Mark Levin. I think Ezra's voice is easier on the ears, but yeah.
You know, you're so right. I've stopped using liberal as an insult because, first of all, what we see these days is leftists. Liberal actually has the root liber, Latin for freedom. And I don't think these leftists even call themselves liberals. They're radicals, they're leftists, they're destroyers, they don't believe in freedom. So I think you're very correct on that. I'll read a couple more here.
Sure,
Paulo Kegley's again, $5. Never forget Trudeau wanted to give $900 million for the management of volunteers. Oh, it was a Hunter Biden move completely, except for instead of taking Chinese money, he was taking Canadian money. Charlie Triple C, $2. Sorry, meant because, not for, seems related to Nice. I missed that. Doug C, $5. Thank you, Doug. C-Pass, $5. There was times that Biden big tech robots started to glitch out. Yeah, I mean, Zuckerberg's endlessly amusing for that, isn't he? He's so robot-like. Paulo Kegley's again, thank you, $5. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, so if I'm not.
Yeah.
Trudeau promised Greta 2 billion trees. Yeah, and he planted zero. And by the way, 2 billion trees, that sounds impressive, but that's what mining and oil and gas companies do all the time. Greenpeace, I'll have you know, does not plant trees.
No, nothing.
Who's the largest tree planter in Canada? You know the answer to this, Sheila.
It's oil and gas.
Suncor, Syncrude, they plant millions by nature, naturally all the time. 2 billion trees sounds cool. Trudeau couldn't get it done. Oil companies, that's nothing. That's like a few years over when oil companies work in the boreal forest of Canada. Victoria Greenfield, $5. What will all those leftists eat when CO2 emissions are gone? Aren't they almost all vegan vegetarians? Yeah, you know what? It was funny. Biden said we only have 8 to 10 years to get this fixed. They keep saying that. They've been saying that for about 20 or 30 years now. We only have 8 to 10 years. I don't know if people even notice that they keep saying the sky is falling. They've been saying it for my whole life, really. Minnie D. Haberdashery, $7. Anyway, the wind blows doesn't really matter to me. Mom, you're talking about poor boys again. It's funny. Jennifer Reed, $5. Did anyone catch Biden throw Obama under the bus when he said, I wasn't president then? Yeah, I thought that was a little bit subtle. I don't know how that's going to help him with the black vote, frankly. Patrick Lomsa, $5. Canada first, Canadians first. The clown in Ottawa must go. There's only one race, the human race. No oil is going anywhere. One word, lithium. All right, I don't know what you mean by, no, oil is not going anywhere. Well, it's going to remain in demand because there's few things that have the intensity of power. I mean, in a gas tank, you have energy in this much space that you solar panels, wind turbines, you just can't. And as Trump pointed out, Trump was friendlier to alternative energy than I thought he would be, but he says you can't power a factory with solar.
Yeah.
You can't. You need coal to make steel. You cannot get the fire hot enough to make steel with anything else other than coal. It's just a fact. You can't burn.
You need coal to make the concrete pad for these horrible wind turbines.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know what? Again, and it was Alex Epstein of the Center for Industrial Progress. That's the name I was looking for. Couldn't find it before. I think it was him who also said, he's got some great lines about reliables and unreliables. I'm not sure if it was him or our friend Mark Morano who said, yeah, thanks very much. Look at that. It's a great website. I really like this guy. We've got his mugs. I don't have one here. It says, I love fossil fuels. I don't know if you click on that up there, store or whatever. But I don't know where I saw this saying. It was, why don't the factories that make wind turbines, why aren't they powered by wind turbines? Exactly. Because you can't, yeah, look at that. That's great. That's
Yep.
great. You can't make wind turbines using wind turbines. You can't make solar panels using solar panels. Both of those things require metal, which you have to mine and then smelt. And you need a wicked hot temperature. You cannot get it with your unreliables. All right, let's move on. Look at me going down another tangent. Do you want to take over and speed things up, Sheila?
Sure. Mick K gives us $7.99 Australian. Thanks for the support with Abby in Australia. Much love from Sydney.
I'm so glad the Aussies are watching. That's great. Well, we love
me
Avi.
too.
He's such a character. He's got a cheeky sense of humor. Even in our staff meetings, he's always throwing the jokes around. And he's just a good bloke.
Yes. Yeah. He does make those staff meetings fun. They can really suck the life out of you sometimes. No offense to A-Tan. MEC gives us $2. Great coverage of the debate. Right on we. Thank you. Charlie CCC gives us $1.99. I swear Giuliani made a video about it yesterday. I'm sure he did. I also saw that he was on Louder with Crowder with the computer. The Celestial Sphere gives us $5. Thank you for fighting for us. You're welcome. Leard Kintyre, $2. Loved Joe's malarkey comment. So hip for 1964. Yes. And I think that's it. We're all caught up. That's great.
Well, he likes saying malarkey because he's embracing his old guy who's slightly out of touch thing. That's what that whole malarkey thing is, I think. Now, I'm not sure if we got Greg Orr, who chipped in $5.49. Thank you very much, Greg. Ashley Cohen, $5. That's very nice of you, Ashley. Thanks for that. I don't see a comment there. Kim Price Finnemore, another $5. Am I going through the right ones here, Justin? I'm just finding them. Miss Bliss,
I don't see them either.
$10
They must
Australian Real
screen.
News. Thank you. Well, I'm just so happy to see Australians.
Me too.
And if I'm trying to guess right, it's 2:35 p.m. in Melbourne. Is that right? 2:35 p.m. tomorrow, I think. I'm not sure if I got that right. Donovan Brewster, thanks to both of you. In the end. Oh, you know what? I think I was reading some really old ones there. Maybe I didn't. Forgive me, maybe I read some a second time, but if that's the case, it don't matter. Shaw chips in $5 Canadians. Thank you for that. Well, listen, I thought tonight was a great night, and there's still some super chats coming in. Dan Kerr, $7. Love Rebel News. Keep up your good work getting us the news while dealing with so many crazies. You know, our number one expense is people. Our number two expense is lawyers to defend us against people censoring us. I think rent is third, and I think security guards is fourth. In fact, just I'm trying to think. On the weekend, we had 2 security guards with Drea, or one. We had 1 security guard with Drea. We had David in Toronto. We had 2 security guards with him. So just in the last week, we've hired 3 security guards. You tell me the last time anyone at the CBC had to hire a security guard or CTV or Global. They never do, because they are a tribune for the hardcore leftists, the Antifa. You're never going to see a CBCer get kicked out of a environmental extremist protest because that's their house organ. We have to send, like I say, David had 2 and Dre had 1 because of the different threat assessments. We have security guards on speed dial. We have a standing account. And if you want to help, go to journalistdefensefund.com, because that is, I think, in fact, it might even be more than our rent. I'd have to do the math. I haven't seen the math. Like there were some days we had 3-4 security guards deployed. That's how bad it was with the Antifa types. Andrew Reed chips in $1. Thank you very much for that, Andrew. Have we caught up? Matthew Phillips, $2.79. The debate was awesome, and Hunter knows his rocks.
And CPAS.
CPAS, $5. Has Biden been watching Canadian politics with his comment, "You can't walk and chew gum"? I think that's that's sort of a...
It's an oldie.
Yeah, that's one of his oldies. Jennifer Reed, $5. Love
Jen.
Rebel News. We wouldn't know what's going on otherwise. Please keep us informed with those detention centers. So scary. I think we put my monologue from yesterday up on YouTube today, right? And I went in great detail on the request for information put out by Public Works on setting up a raft of new quarantine detention centers. And I asked some questions. For example, they have to have 24/7 security. Is that to keep people out or keep people in? So
Yeah.
I think we'll continue to do some more work on that. But Justin, could you at least show people what that YouTube video looks like? I'm not saying play it. But although, you know what, actually, you show people what the thumbnail and the title looks like. But actually, if you can, given that we don't have any super chats stacked up now, and I don't propose to keep around here very much longer, but I want to show people, if you can fast forward to when I'm reading the document. Yeah, why don't you show the COVID warning that Google insists we do, just for a second. Step one, let's show people what the video looks like, what the thumbnail looks like, and what the title looks like. Step two, let's show the COVID warning. And then step three, if you can fast forward to when I'm actually walking through the document. Because people are saying, oh, there's no pandemic detention centers in Canada. Well, I actually went through a lengthy Public Works document that outlines the fact that there are 11 such detention centers in Canada, housing 1,600 people. And I don't know if they're full or empty. But the government is looking into doubling that number, which is odd to me. So this is what it looks like. Justin Trudeau's COVID-19 detention center is what you need to know. How many views does that thing have? If you click on the YouTube headline itself, that pulls it up in the app. Yeah, there's our COVID warning that we're required to do. 30,000, all right, that's respectable. So there's our warning that YouTube says we have to put on. Can you fast forward to when I sort of tuck into the document? We won't take too much time here. It's a 14-minute video, but I go through the document. Yeah, about there is fine. Perfect. Let's just do a good 2 minutes here. Of delivery, and you can see they list every single province and territory. And to the left of that, they say who the end user is. That's Public Health Agency of Canada, so that's Theresa Tam. And under that is a general description. I'm going to read what they say. It's going to take me about a minute to read it, but bear with me. I think it's actually pretty interesting. The Government of Canada is considering engaging a third-party service provider for federal quarantine isolation sites that will be used to house and care for people for public health and other related federal requirements associated with the COVID-19 pandemic response. The government is seeking feedback from current service providers about potential options for standing up, operating, and managing all the services associated with these sites. The purpose of this request for information, RFI, is to seek feedback from potential service providers in order to develop a strategy for the potential future management of these sites going forward. Should the Government of Canada determine that a third-party managed solution going forward is a viable strategy, Public Services and Procurement Canada may issue a request for proposal to provide suppliers the opportunity to bid on the services required as per the schedule contained in this document. Okay, thanks for letting me read all that. I just wanted to set the table here. These detention centers are for public health reasons or other reasons related to the pandemic. Hang on. What are non-health reasons for a detention center? Why, it's non-compliance. For people who aren't sick, they're not a health risk, but maybe they're a political risk. As Theresa Tam said in that film clip I showed earlier, it's for people who won't do what politicians tell them to do. I find it odd that the government is asking for tips on how to do all this. They're asking for vendors to dazzle them with ideas. Hang on, you either need something or you don't. As a government, why would you tell the world's prison companies to hit you up with their best shot? Hey guys, just dazzle us. I don't know what I want, but I know when I'll see it. Impress me, guys. Well, why are you asking the world's private prison companies to come up with solutions for you? If you ask a jail builder to come up with an idea, it's probably going to be an idea for building jails, I'm guessing. You're begging the question. Now, there's a lot of documents linked on this site, but I'll just read from the first one, published about a month ago. The document repeats some of what I just read at length, and then it gives us some more detail. I'm going to read a little bit of this for you. Under the current emergency order in council, all travelers arriving in Canada must have a suitable place to isolate or quarantine. Public Health Agency Canada is currently managing 11 designated quarantine sites, DQS, in 9 cities across Canada with a capacity to lodge up to 1,600 travelers. Public health regional staff are responsible for the management of 9 quarantine sites across Canada, with logistics, cleaning, transportation, food, and nursing services provided by external providers. Really? Did you know that? Did you know there's 11 quarantine sites in Canada right now? 11 of them, out of the 11, 9 are run by the feds, 2 by private companies. I didn't know that. In 9 cities, who's in there? They actually list on page 11 of this document where the existing detention centers are. Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Montreal, but also Kelowna, Fredericton, St. John's, places like that, Whitehorse even. Why? Page 12 has their wish list of cities. They want to add Saskatoon, Charlottetown, Iqaluit. Why on earth for? Is it really people who are returning from abroad and have no place to self-quarantine as travelers? Is that really it? Because, by the way, last I checked, and I just checked this morning, there were only foreign flights coming into 4 Canadian cities, Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal. So why would there be quarantine camps in other cities? Who's in there right now? Why would this need to be expanded? I'll read some more. At this time, the designated quarantine sites are being used to address the COVID-19 14-day quarantine requirements for international travelers not having a suitable place to isolate. Over time, the use of these DQS, designated quarantine facilities, may be temporarily discontinued until needed again by the Government of Canada, or maybe used for other requirements. Really? Other requirements? Like what other requirements? What does that mean? I'll read some more. In anticipation of a possible continued need for quarantine sites over the next 1 to 2 years, given the COVID-19 pandemic, Public Health is considering having a third-party service provider. It goes on. I'm sorry I played too much, but I know some people are extremely interested in this. I want to invite you to find that video. It's in full on our YouTube channel, easy to find. It's on our website, rebelnews.com. I take you through the document, as you can see. The whole video, I think, is 13 minutes long. I learned things from it. I didn't know there were 11 quarantine facilities in Canada.
No.
I didn't know they had a wish list of a bunch more. I didn't know that they say they need it for 1 or 2 more years. So much for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And what creeps me out is they keep saying for health or other reasons. What are those other reasons? I won't go through the whole thing now. I played too much of it there. But they talk about 24/7 security. They talk about all sorts of things there. And, you know, I've received, and I just want to say this, I've received probably 100 people send me this fake leaked email by a Liberal Party boss who has the inside scoop on the big plan. As if Justin Trudeau shares any policy strategies with the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party has 2 purposes: raise money and get votes. Justin Trudeau doesn't talk to them about policy. They only have one purpose: give him money, give him votes, manage the party, discipline people, shut up. And they don't. That memo is so fake it hurts. And everyone's excited about that fake memo. How about be excited about this real deal that I just showed you from the Public Works website? And so, you know, don't get excited. That is fake news. That
it's so fake,
and it's so obviously fake. But how about we focus on what's real? Anything else is a placebo. It's self-delusion. It's a distraction. It's a time waste. You want things to be that bad? I can assure you, they are that bad. But how about let's focus on the real? Don't wrestle with figments of your imagination. There are real problems to wrestle with. All right, Sheila, I'm done that little rant again. It's 11:47. Let's see if we can wrap up some super chats. And if you feel like you have to rant, go ahead. We still have a few people.
No,
watching.
I'm good. I'm all out of ranting. It is, I think we're on our very last super chat.
Okay.
Kane and Mark gives us $2, says, love you guys. Good work. Thank you very much. And Kane, thank you for always tuning into our live chats. You're always active in the super chats.
I see Lisa Proust has one more. Thank you, Ezra, for addressing this very scary. Thank you, Lisa. I encourage people to watch the full video, which you can see elsewhere on YouTube. Well, the clock here is about to strike midnight, and of course, I turn into a pumpkin at midnight, a very large, bulbous pumpkin with, I'll just stop the analogy there. I want to say thanks to everyone who worked on the show tonight. Justin, as usual, working very, very late. We thank you for taking the time, Justin. Mike, who did the backdrop. Other folks involved with the show, including folks on the social media side. Sheila, as always, thank you for co-hosting.
You got it.
Oh, a couple more super chats. Let's just read them really quick before we shut her down. Patrick Lomsa, $5. Since when did the government become medical experts? Since when do we allow them to do so? Stop the big government. Well, yeah, that's the thing. There's a difference between medical doctors and public health doctors, I've learned.
Yes, yeah.
Shaw, $5. Facebook and YouTube restrictions and censorship is appalling. Almost could not link your show to my Facebook because their link restriction ended at 7 p.m. Oh, yeah. I mean, don't even get me started. We have to put up warnings on things or they'll just knock us down.
Yep.
Well, Sheila, I'll give the last word to you. If you have anything else you want to say before we bid our viewers adieu.
I just hope that what we saw unfold in the last 3 minutes of that debate tonight is enough to turn those purple states red. Yeah. Ohio, Pennsylvania. I hope hearing a presidential candidate promise to put you out of work and on the unemployment lines is enough to make those states vote Republican. I hope for the sake of the Western world.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'll tell you one thing. You swap out that American oil and you swap in OPEC oil, not one single barrel of oil fewer will be burned, not one fewer cars will be driven. It'll just be more money to the bad guys and fewer jobs for the good jobs. I'm just going to read the last super chat from Aggieist, who chips in 70 smackers. I thank you for that. With regards to the quarantine detention centers, I did hear CBC Radio mention them a few weeks ago. They were saying the location of the centers remain undisclosed to protect individuals' privacy, or at least that's their excuse for now. Well, I think the subject needs more inquiry.
Yes.
Perhaps we'll do it. Oh, and there's one more, I think. At least that's what Justin just said.
I don't see it, Justin.
Looking for it. Lisa says, love you, Sheila, love your work. Well, I'll let you answer that, and we'll close on that note, Sheila.
I don't. Oh, Lisa Proust, regular supporter, Rebel Superfan says, love you, Sheila, love your work. Thank you very much, Lisa. We get a lot of hate online, but those are just a bunch of loud, vocal weirdos. I think we appeal to the normals, and you seem to be a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the hate to like count, 2,800 likes, 32 dislikes. That's really all our videos. They're 98 or 99% likes to dislikes. So I've learned to tune out the haters. And when 1.4 million subscribers say we want Rebel News updates, that gives me encouragement to ignore the mean girls of the media party and our haters, and to work every day for our fans, including you, Lisa, and everyone else who super chatted tonight, and all the other thousands of viewers. I thought it was a good night. On that note,
I thought it was great.
Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters and Sheila at our fortress in northern Alberta, good night, and keep fighting for freedom.